At a prestigious private jet terminal, a woman arrives, ready to board her aircraft, only to be denied entry by her own pilot. He assumes she doesn't belong, unaware that she is the sole owner of the jet he's about to fly. But when the truth comes out, his career takes a shocking turn. How will she respond to this blatant disrespect? And what lesson will be learned at 30,000 feet? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The Los Angeles private jet terminal was a haven of quiet luxury. The gleaming marble floors, the subtle scent of fresh espresso, and the low murmur of conversations between executives and celebrities created an atmosphere of exclusivity. Aaliyah Monroe stepped inside, her confidence undeniable. Unlike the other travelers, draped in designer labels and ostentatious jewelry, she didn't need to flaunt her wealth. She had built her empire from the ground up, a tech powerhouse specializing in AI innovation. And today, she was en route to Tokyo for a major business deal that could change the industry. As she approached the check-in counter, the receptionist, a young woman with a polished uniform and an eager smile, greeted her. "Good afternoon, ma'am. May I assist you?" Aaliyah offered a polite nod. "Yes, I'm here for the Monroe flight to Tokyo." The receptionist's eyes flickered toward her screen before responding, "Of course, Ms. Monroe. Your aircraft is being prepared. The captain will meet you shortly." Aaliyah thanked her and moved toward the private lounge, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. She glanced at her watch. Everything was on schedule. From across the terminal, Captain Richard Dawson entered, his crisp uniform and confident stride, exuding authority. Spotting Aaliyah, he hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly. His gaze swept over her, not in recognition, but in evaluation. He wasn't expecting someone like her. As he approached, he extended his hand stiffly. "Miss Monroe, I presume?" Aaliyah shook it firmly. "That's correct, Captain Dawson. I trust we're ready for departure?" There was a pause, barely perceptible but undeniable. Then, a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Well, that depends, ma'am," he said, his tone light, but laced with something else, something just beneath the surface. Aaliyah didn't miss the slight hesitation in Captain Richard Dawson's voice, nor the way his gaze briefly flickered with something unreadable. She had seen this before: doubt wrapped in politeness, skepticism disguised as protocol. She kept her expression neutral. "Is there a problem, Captain?" Dawson's smirk lingered as he crossed his arms. "Not a problem, ma'am. Just unexpected." Aaliyah arched an eyebrow. "Unexpected?" He shrugged. "We don't usually see private jet owners, such as yourself, flying out of this terminal." There it was. He didn't say it outright, but the meaning was clear. Someone like her, black, female, young, didn't fit his mental image of a jet owner. She held his gaze, her voice cool but firm. "And what kind of jet owners do you usually see, Captain?" Dawson hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding. "Well, you know, the usual. Seasoned business executives, industry moguls, royalty." Aaliyah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Good to know I'm breaking the mold." Before he could respond, a young flight coordinator, Noah Carter, stepped forward, sensing the tension. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "Miss Monroe, if you'd like, I can escort you to the lounge while we complete the final pre-flight checks." Aaliyah nodded, but kept her gaze locked on Dawson. "I assume my jet will be ready for departure as scheduled?" Dawson's expression tightened, but he forced a nod. "Of course, ma'am." As Aaliyah walked toward the lounge, Noah fell into step beside her, his expression uncertain. "I apologize for that, ma'am." She glanced at him. "For what?" Noah hesitated. For Captain Dawson's comments. He's been flying private jets for a long time. Sometimes people get stuck in their ways. Aaliyah let out a soft chuckle. Noah, getting stuck in your ways is an excuse for preferring paper over digital. It's not an excuse for questioning whether someone belongs. Noah nodded slowly, absorbing her words. You're right, ma'am. As they reached the private lounge, Aaliyah took a deep breath, pushing away the irritation bubbling inside her. This wasn't the first time she had encountered bias, and it wouldn't be the last. But she had worked too hard to let someone else's narrow-mindedness disrupt her flight or her future. Aaliyah settled into the plush leather seating of the private lounge, trying to focus on the upcoming negotiations in Tokyo. The deal was monumental, a multi-million-dollar AI software contract that would put her company at the forefront of the industry. She had worked for years to get here, and she wouldn't let petty discrimination distract her. But then, Noah Carter reappeared, looking uneasy. Ms. Monroe, he started hesitantly. There seems to be an issue. Aaliyah set down her tablet, her eyes sharp. What kind of issue? Noah swallowed, shifting awkwardly. Captain Dawson is requesting further verification before we can proceed with your flight. Her expression didn't change, but her patience thinned. Verification? I've already checked in. My name is on the manifest. What exactly does he need to verify? Noah hesitated. He says it's just protocol. Something about ensuring ownership authorization before takeoff. Aaliyah exhaled, but her voice remained calm. And how often does he request this kind of verification from other jet owners? Noah's silence was answer enough. With deliberate movements, Aaliyah rose to her feet. Where is he? She walked back toward the tarmac, Noah following behind. At the jet's stairs, Dawson stood with his arms crossed, talking quietly with another crew member. The tension in his posture made it clear that he knew what was coming. Captain Dawson, Aaliyah said evenly, I hear there's a problem. Dawson turned, feigning innocence. Not a problem, Ms. Monroe. Just following standard procedures. She met his gaze directly. Standard procedures? You mean the same procedures that somehow weren't an issue when I checked in earlier? Dawson's lips pressed into a thin line. Look, ma'am, I just need to confirm that you're truly the authorized owner. People forge documents all the time. Aaliyah's jaw tightened, but she refused to let anger dictate her response. So, let me get this straight. You're accusing me of potentially falsifying ownership of my own jet? Dawson shifted uncomfortably, but didn't back down. I'm just being cautious. This is an expensive aircraft, and you what? She interrupted, her voice sharp now. Don't usually see owners like me? Dawson hesitated for a fraction too long. That was all the confirmation she needed. Aaliyah pulled out her phone, and in one smooth motion, dialed a number. Within seconds, a voice answered, Leonard. We have a situation. On the other end, Leonard Hayes, her company's top legal advisor, responded immediately. What happened? Aaliyah turned slightly away from Dawson, but spoke loudly enough for him to hear. Captain Dawson is refusing to let me board my own jet. Claims he needs to verify my ownership. I assume this is a violation of our contract with the aviation company? Leonard didn't miss a beat. Absolutely. Want me to escalate this to the CEO? A small, knowing smile played at Aaliyah's lips. Yes, do that. Dawson's expression faltered. He opened his mouth, but Aaliyah held up a hand. I suggest you think carefully about what you say next, Captain. Because this isn't just a matter of inconvenience. It's a matter of liability and discrimination. Dawson's face reddened, but before he could say another word, his radio crackled to life. A voice, urgent and authoritative, came through. "Captain Dawson, please report to the terminal manager's office immediately." Aaliyah crossed her arms, watching as the weight of the situation finally settled on Dawson's face. His career was now at risk, and he knew it. Captain Dawson's jaw tightened as the radio call ended, his posture stiffening. He glanced at Aaliyah, frustration flickering behind his eyes. But she didn't waver. She had seen this before, when people realized their prejudice had put them in a position they couldn't defend. "I don't see why this has to be escalated," Dawson muttered, trying to regain control of the situation. "I was just doing my job." Aaliyah raised an eyebrow. Your job is to fly this jet, Captain, not to determine who deserves to own one." Noah Carter, who had been quietly observing, finally stepped forward. His voice was hesitant, but firm. "Ms. Monroe is right. There was no reason for this delay. All the required paperwork was cleared before she even arrived." Dawson shot Noah a sharp glare. "Stay out of this, Carter." But Noah didn't back down. "With all due respect, sir, I won't. I've worked in this industry long enough to know that you wouldn't have asked for this verification if she looked different." The tension in the air was palpable. Dawson's face darkened, but before he could retaliate, a terminal manager approached, a phone in hand, her expression unreadable. "Captain Dawson, I just got off the phone with corporate. You are to step down from this flight immediately. A new pilot will take over." Dawson's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? You can't be serious." The manager's expression remained neutral. "The decision has been made. You'll need to report to headquarters for further discussion regarding this incident." Aaliyah watched as Dawson gritted his teeth, struggling to process the reality of the situation. His years of experience, his position, his ego. It all meant nothing now that his actions had caught up with him. "This is ridiculous," he muttered under his breath before finally stepping away from the aircraft, his movements rigid with anger. As he walked off, Aaliyah turned to Noah, who still looked uncertain. "Thank you for speaking up," she said, her voice softer now. Noah nodded. It was the right thing to do. She studied him for a moment before adding, "Next time, don't wait. When you see something wrong, call it out before it escalates." Noah held her gaze and nodded. "I will." Aaliyah took a slow breath, looking toward her jet. It was finally time to board, and this time, nothing was going to stop her. As Captain Dawson disappeared into the terminal, the tension that had gripped the air finally began to dissolve. Aaliyah exhaled slowly, adjusting the strap of her sleek leather carry-on. The battle was over, and she had won. Not just for herself, but for every person who had ever been doubted, dismissed, or disrespected, simply because they didn't fit the mold. Noah Carter walked beside her toward the jet's entrance. He still looked slightly shaken by what had transpired, but there was a quiet determination in his eyes now. "Ms. Monroe," he said hesitantly, "I just wanted to say, what happened back there? That shouldn't have happened to you. Ever." Aaliyah gave him a small but knowing smile. "I appreciate that, Noah, but it does happen. More often than you think." Noah nodded, his hands tightening at his sides. "It won't happen under my watch again." She studied him for a moment before replying, "Good. Because people like Dawson don't change unless they're forced to." With that, Aaliyah turned and ascended the stairs to her private jet, stepping into the cabin that represented years of hard work and resilience. The soft hum of the engines, the plush leather seats, and the panoramic windows felt like a sanctuary. but also a statement. As she settled in, her phone buzzed. A message from Leonard Hayes. Leonard, just got word. Dawson is done. Fired permanently. Aaliyah's lips curled into a small, satisfied smile. Justice had been served. Outside, the runway stretched ahead, clear and open as her jet prepared for takeoff. And with it, she soared, not just into the sky, but toward a future where prejudice had no place. Aaliyah Monroe's story is more than just a tale of success and resilience. It is a reminder that bias still exists in places we least expect, and that power must be asserted, not just earned. One of the key takeaways from this experience is the importance of speaking up. If Aaliyah had chosen to stay silent, Captain Dawson's behavior would have gone unchallenged. Discrimination, whether subtle or overt, thrives in silence. When we witness unfair treatment, we have two choices: ignore it or confront it. Aaliyah's decision to hold Dawson accountable didn't just protect her rights, it sent a message that prejudice has consequences. Another lesson is that true professionalism means respecting everyone, regardless of how they look or where they come from. Dawson assumed power based on stereotypes, and it cost him his career. Meanwhile, Noah Carter learned the value of allyship, choosing to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. In life and in business, never let someone else decide where you belong. Success is not defined by perceptions, but by actions. Claim your space, stand your ground, and demand respect, not just for yourself, but for those who come after you. Imagine yourself in Aaliyah's position. You've worked hard, earned your success, and yet someone still questions your right to be where you are. Would you choose to stand up and demand respect? 1. Or would you choose to let it go and avoid conflict? 2. Drop 1 or 2 in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Let's continue these important conversations and make sure that no one has to fight alone. ***.